I know getting real estate deals done today is tough. I know a lot of you are getting started. You want a deal so bad you can taste it. I know some of you are willing to take negative cash flow, AKA do a bad deal just to get into the game. We're going to have a conversation with Coach Carson about why that probably is not a great idea and what you could do to potentially create a great deal. Chad, I know you're hearing this a lot from your students and followers. It's tough out there. 9% money, high prices, cash flow's the goal, but dude, it's tough. So what do you say when people bring you deals to review and you're like, dude, this is negative cash flow. What the heck are you doing? What do you do?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the common situation I'm seeing over and over again is people saying the deals don't work. Here, look at the numbers. Here, look at the financing. And on the surface, I agree 100% with them. Like, no, given the numbers you've shared with me here, it doesn't work. But what I found that this is not a new concept, but for 21 years when I've been investing, very rarely has the deal just fallen in my lap and it's like, wow, this looks like a good deal. Like when that happens, that's a good day. And I'm like, let's jump on this deal right now.
Right.
I don't know if that's the same for you, but for me, it's more about you've got to look. It's almost like you're digging for gold and you have to dig below the surface to find some angle, some competitive advantage you have, something you can change. Like you have to do something either with negotiating with the seller, with changing something about the property. Like a simple example is fixing up the property, adding value to it. But there's a lot more. There's a lot of other ways to do it. The financing right now, I think, is the biggest opportunity. There's a lot of amazing properties where the asset's fine, like the house is fine, the multifamily is fine. That's not the problem. The problem is figuring out a way to make the terms, the financing, even better. So that we've talked about that some here on the show, but that's as I'm analyzing deals with people, is not the question like, or it's not the situation the deal won't work. It's like, how can we make the deal work? Let's look at it. Can we make it a lower offer? At what price would it work? At what financing terms would it work? How can we change things? And then, yes, it's not easy to fix that. You do have to negotiate. You do have to go look outside the box. But I find that very hopeful. I find it very optimistic that there is a way to make the deal work. You as the entrepreneur just have to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, folks just, I don't know what it is. Yeah, I've been doing this 22 years. Real estate investing is always hard. It's always hard. I hope people hear that. And it's just different kinds of hard, right? I remember a time where prices were low where you couldn't get a bank loan. Well, that's not necessarily very easy. So you got to go out and get 12, 13, 14% hard money. I've been in environments where, rates were really low, but then you have 30 offers, right? It's always hard. And I really hope people hear this. I think this season we're in is the second best time in my career to find motivated sellers. Now, if you believe that's true, and I believe it with every fiber of my body, that means you, the investor, it's time to get creative, right? So some things that you said that I would echo, but maybe say differently. Your asset that you're looking to buy, there is a price that makes sense. Do you know what that is? Second, there is a mortgage payment where that asset makes sense. Now, a lot of you hear me say that and you think it's the same thing. They are absolutely not the same thing. You can write a lower price and go get debt financing, or you could give the seller their price and play with it, play with the debt. Maybe they take some, maybe the bank takes some, maybe this, maybe that. You just got to be creative today. And the only way I can do that, because I don't do mailers, I don't do postcards, I don't do, texting, door knocking, any of that, is I find properties on the market 30 days or greater, which is in my market where the first price drop happens. And I write aggressive offers. I write aggressive offers, Chad, so low, I expect the seller to say no. But that's just the start of the conversation. That's just start of the follow-up. People, know your numbers, know where the mortgage payment needs to be, know where the price needs to be. These are just variables that you get to play with, right?
Yeah. I mentioned kind of in passing earlier that the asset isn't broken. The financing's broken today. And I want to go back to that because
yes,
what you're saying is really, you've got to get confident. Confidence is the key word here. You got to get confident in the fundamentals of why you're investing in real estate. because all the noise, all the doomers, all the stuff you talk about on here is 100% right. You're gonna get clouded, and there's gonna be confusion about what makes a good deal, what doesn't make a good deal. And in my world, when I'm helping people and I get the whiteboard out, or I get the the piece of paper out, or the spreadsheet, is let's just go back to the basics of what makes a good real estate deal, like the passing and the blocking of football, or the dribbling and the shooting and basketball.
Yeah.
The basics for me are, if I paid cash for this property, what is the rental yield? You could another way, similar to a cap rate. What is the return on investment if I paid cash for that property? That's the baseline, bottom line way that you can really clear out all the confusion, all the financing games that people play. And for example, in my market, if I could find a B plus, A minus, maybe even a solid B location property, single family house, and I could buy it for a 5.5 to 6% unleveraged yield, that's solid for me. I would be willing to buy that deal. I'd like to do better. I probably will do better, but that's how you can work it backwards and make an offer. Let's say it's 6%. You take a property that the rent produces $6,000 per year in net operating income. I know that's kind of low. You probably have to double that, right? Let's say $12,000 per year. That's $1,000 per month. That is a $200,000 purchase price with a 6% yield. That's how you work it backwards. Now, that is a very simple way of looking at it, but I can promise you, people are spending millions and even billions of dollars with that kind of simple analysis, because here's the logic. They're saying, I like this asset. I've already evaluated the quality of this location. I think that has a good growth potential. If I buy a property that makes me 6% on my cash, I'm just going to put the cash into it, or I'm going to bring a partner in and put their cash into it, and I think this property will grow at 3, 4, 5% over the next 10 years, then that is a 9, 10, or 11% total return. And in the world of unleveraged returns, a 9 to 11% return is amazing. That's solid for a really good property. So I just want to let that sink in, but that's how I think about deals. And you can get more complicated if you want, but that's pretty simple.
Well, I mean, I'll go one step further. Your model and flow is exactly what Invitation Homes does. Invitation Homes, 44 or 45,000 single family homes across the country. Their goal is to buy 6 caps, which essentially is a 6% if they're paying cash for the property. They'll sell buildings at 4%, right? So again, that's their spread, right? Buy at 6, sell at 4, and they make hay from there. So if it's good enough for the biggest players on the planet, Wall Street, the smart money, it should be good enough for you. But again, most of you are kind of single threaded, right? You see a list price, you assume that has to be the price. Yes, I know in 2020 and in 2021, list price, it never went lower than list price. Well, guess what? In 22 years I've been doing this, it's happened twice. The next year and a half to 2 years, I'll never pay list price for the next couple of years. You can get terms. You can, if the seller doesn't want to take the full thing back, go get a small seller second, right? You talked about one of your deals that didn't look good sub 2, but maybe make it a lease option, right? There's just a lot of ways people need to get more creative. And this is something why I love you on the channel, because those creative options, like taking a sub 2 and making it a lease option, that's all new to me. But there's just lots of levers you can pull, right?
Yes, absolutely. And so there's 2 kind of solutions if people want some practical applications of this. One is you have to build your financing toolbox. That's something that most of us haven't built. We've had this one hammer. We've going around just hitting a hammer, and that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with a hammer, but you can't build a house, a financial house, with just a hammer. So part 1, you got to get educated on all those tools: lease options, seller financing, subject to, using partners, using sandwich lease options, lots of different options out there. You don't have to do all of them, but learn 1 or 2 of them. But the second part, which I think is even more important, and I think you've been alluding to this, there's a different mentality that you have to take in this market. And if you take I have to be the highest bidder and compete with everybody else mentality and bring it to this market, you're going to overpay. You're not going to really negotiate hard like you need to. And so instead, this is how I started my career as a 23-year-old, just getting out of college, scrappy, no money. I just had to go out and figure it out. You've got to go out there and be I call it a solution provider or a puzzle solver. And I talked about this in my book, The Small and Mighty Investor. I had a whole chapter on negotiation. And I told a story how I learned how to solve puzzles by turning over puzzle pieces when you're negotiating, either with the realtor or preferably with the seller. I like to go directly to the seller, either over the phone or in person. And every single one of those negotiations is not like a back and forth. I'm tugging on a, it's tug of war back and forth. It's very different when you're talking about creative options. It's more of, hey, this is a puzzle. You're the seller, I'm the buyer. We may or may not be able to come to a solution here, but if you're open to it, I would love to listen, figure out what you're trying to accomplish, aka turning over the puzzle pieces. And if we could turn all those puzzle pieces over, I'm a creative person. I would like to buy this property. I'll give you some offers that may work for you. And that's a totally different mentality than, hey, let me make an offer through the realtor and let's tug of war back and forth. It's a very different mentality. It's a solution mentality. So I think more people have to take the toolbox of financing tools and then have the attitude of being a puzzle solver. Those two combinations of skills will be big time wealth builders in the next couple of years.
Oh, the next couple of years, it's all about that. It's all about the last 2 years was cash and speed. That's all it was, cash and speed. The next 2 years, it is that problem solver. Because here's the deal. If you're trying to sell a property when mortgage rates are 8 and 9%, you want to sell. I mean, just knowing that means you can start a conversation. And if you have a property that's listed for 65 days, you've taken a price cut and it's still there, you want to sell. So being that person that reaches out, having a conversation, understanding what they need. And oh, by the way, as I started, know what you need, right? If you're buying your one rental at a time, you need cash flow. You need a great yield, which better than average. So do the math ahead of time. And guys, be an open book. Tell the seller, I can't have a mortgage payment over X. And oh, by the way, you want 50% money now, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? I got to get 9% money. Where are we going to get the other 40, 50%? Yeah, I'll bring some cash to the table so the agent gets paid, but you got to help me out on the next. Maybe you take 40% back and I have a 5-year balloon, no payments. Maybe, right? I mean, there's all kinds of negotiation you could do.
Yeah, and if you will never know until you make that offer. If you think, oh, the common refrain in a lot of people's heads, like, well, I wouldn't do that. Well, you're not sitting there with a house that's stuck,
Yeah, you're not sitting there with a vacant house. You've already moved to Texas to be close to your kids. You're getting fined because your grass is overgrown or turning brown or whatever the heck the fines are for. Yeah, just because you wouldn't do it doesn't mean anything. So, man, where can people find you?
Anywhere you search for Coach Carson, I'm there. YouTube is one place I hang out a lot, just like Michael does. If you search for Coach Chad Carson on there, on social media, Instagram, and then if you go to my website, coachcarson.com, I have a newsletter you can sign up for free. And I send that out every week.
Nice. Thank you very much, bud.
Thanks, Michael.